You crazy kids, this is a business area, no riding on the sidewalk.
Remember when the only rule was to be home before the streetlights came on? When playgrounds were basically just tetanus farms with swings, built from scorching hot metal and rusty bolts. Today's kids are wrapped in bubble wrap. We had lawn darts. How did any of us survive? If you grew up in the 70s, you probably had the best childhood ever. But kids today will just never understand the gauntlet we ran to make it to dinner. So, today we're counting down the top 10 reasons why, by any modern standard, 70s kids should all be dead. Coming in at number 10, our unrestrained freedom in the car. Before mandatory child seat laws kicked in during the 80s, the family car was a lawless playground on wheels. Seatbelts, they were more of a suggestion. Kids were routinely piled into the back of a wood-paneled station wagon, sometimes facing backwards to make faces at the cars behind us. There were no car seats, no booster seats, and definitely no 5-point harnesses. Federal standards for child seats didn't even require crash testing until the early 80s. In 1971, the government decided car seats just needed to be held down by the car's own safety belt, which had only become a standard a few years earlier. The whole point of early car seats wasn't to protect us in a crash, it was just to keep us from climbing all over the place. We were human pinballs, and the dashboard was the high-score target. Today, a kid riding into that would trigger a multi-state alert. But for us, it was just called going to the grocery store. At number 9, we have the Wild West of playgrounds. Forget soft rubber mats and splinter-free surfaces, 70s playgrounds were masterpieces of questionable safety. Towering metal slides got hot enough in the summer to literally brand you for life. Jungle gyms seemed to scrape the sky, and they're almost always built over concrete, asphalt, or gravel. And who could forget the merry-go-round, a centrifugal force machine seemingly designed to launch kids into low orbit. Before the first Handbook for Public Playground Safety came out in 1981, there were almost no official rules. We were basically test pilots in a giant experiment of physics and pain. These weren't play areas, they were gladiator arenas where only the strong and the quick healing survived. Our number 8 is a simple one: no bicycle helmets. It's unthinkable now to see a kid on a bike without a helmet, but in the 70s, wearing a helmet would have been as weird as carrying a cell phone.
You crazy kids, this is a business area, no riding on the sidewalk.
We rode our Stingrays for miles, totally unsupervised, with our hair flowing freely in the wind. The first laws requiring kids to wear helmets didn't even start showing up until the late 1980s. For us, the only head protection we had was a thick skull. We built sketchy ramps out of plywood and bricks, daring each other to jump over our friends lying on the ground. Scraped knees and elbows were a guarantee, but the risk of a serious head injury, it just wasn't something we ever thought about. It was all about the adrenaline and the ride. At number 7, we have a product that seems completely insane today: candy cigarettes. These were chalky sugar sticks packaged to look just like real brands like Marlboro. You could walk into any corner store and buy a pack, and when you blew through it, a puff of powdered sugar smoke came out. People started getting concerned after the Surgeon General's big report on smoking in the 60s, which called out the candies for luring kids into a bad habit. But when Congress tried to ban them in 1970, the bills failed. Instead, manufacturers just quietly changed the name from cigarettes to sticks. It's no surprise that studies later found kids who ate candy cigarettes were way more likely to become smokers as adults. We were literally practicing a deadly habit, and it was sold right next to the bubble gum. Holding the number 6 spot is a danger that was everywhere: second-hand smoke. It's hard for anyone born after 1990 to even imagine, but in the 70s, people smoked everywhere. In restaurants, in offices, on buses, even on aeroplanes. As a kid, you were breathing in a constant fog of it, whether you liked it or not. Parents smoked in the car with the windows rolled up, and in every room of the house. The US Surgeon General first warned about the dangers of secondhand smoke in a 1972 report, but that message took a long time to sink in. We now know that secondhand smoke has over 4,000 chemicals, dozens of which cause cancer, heart disease, and all sorts of other illnesses. For 70s kids, there was no escape. we were just passively inhaling a nationwide health crisis. Cracking our top 5 is the undisputed king of dangerous toys, lawn darts. If you don't know, this was a game where you toss heavy, metal-tipped projectiles high into the air, trying to land them in a plastic ring on the ground. Think horseshoes, but with miniature javelins. What could possibly go wrong? Well, a lot. These darts could hit the ground with enough force to puncture a human skull, and they did. After causing thousands of emergency room visits, 81% involving kids under 15, and at least 3 deaths, lawn darts were finally banned for good in 1988. But for a whole generation, these backyard weapons were a staple of summer barbecues. Number 4 on our list is the cocktail of chemicals we were exposed to every single day. So many products in our homes were toxic nightmares. For instance, asbestos, a known carcinogen, was used as insulation in tons of handheld hairdryers until the FDA ordered recalls in 1979. Our furniture was often treated with formaldehyde, which would just seep into the air. Even our toys weren't safe. Many plastic toys, including Lego bricks made before the early 80s, used lead and cadmium for coloring. Then you had the chemicals in cleaning products like benzene and pesticides like DDT, which were far less regulated than they are today. We were basically living in a soup of hazardous materials that have since been banned. Taking the number 3 spot is a silent, invisible threat that affected every single child of the era: leaded gasoline. The use of lead in gas peaked in the 1970s, which means massive amounts of neurotoxic lead were being pumped into the air from car exhaust. Every kid born in that decade was exposed to damaging levels of lead. Studies have since linked this childhood lead exposure to a ton of long-term problems for Generation X. Research now connects it to higher risks of anxiety, depression, and ADHD. It's also been shown to have lowered the IQ of kids born in the mid-70s by an average of nearly 6 points. It wasn't just in the air, it settled in the soil, where we played, and the water we drank. We're still only beginning to understand the full, devastating impact of this poison. At number 2, it's the places our parents worked. The Occupational Safety and Health Act, or OSHA, was only signed into law at the very end of 1970. Before and during its early years, workplace safety rules were all over the place. In 1970 alone, an estimated 14,000 people died on the job. Our parents went to work in places where they could be exposed to all sorts of hazards without the protections that exist today. Over its first decade, OSHA started making rules for things like asbestos, lead, and other carcinogens. But for much of the 70s, workers in construction and manufacturing faced dangers that are now strictly regulated. And those toxins didn't always stay at the factory. They came home on clothes and skin, exposing the whole family. And the number 1 reason 70s kids should all be dead? It's the simple, unbelievable fact that we survived everything on this list. From the lead in our air to the weapons in our toy chests, a Gen X childhood was a daily obstacle course of dangers that have since been regulated or banned out of existence. We were the last generation to experience that kind of unsupervised, unstructured, and undeniably dangerous freedom. It's a miracle we're all here to tell the tale, and frankly, it gives us some serious bragging rights.